Hello, welcome to the Spaghetti Westerns podcast. I'm Tom Betts, your host. This is season 9, episode 6, number 146. Today we're going to talk about in our history of the Spaghetti Westerns, left-handed Johnny West, or as we sometimes call it, just Johnny West. Who are those guys? We're going to talk about the four Dell'Acqua brothers and their sister. In case you didn't know that they did have a sister and she was in one spaghetti western, we'll fill you in. Whatever became of, since these are both very little information on them, I thought I would put two together, and they're Joseph Egger and Antonio Prieto. Film of the week is The Great Grand Duel. I've got an autograph of the week. No book this time. We still haven't got anything new coming in. We'll talk about the CDs and LPs for these films. I've got some posters, and we'll wrap things up with the weekly news. So let's get started. History of the Spaghetti Westerns and left-handed Johnny West. Okay, left-handed Johnny West or Johnny West. This is a 1965 Italian, French, and Spanish co-production. The director is Frank Kramer. It's really Gianfranco Parolini is his real name. The screenplay is by Parolini, Giovanni Simonelli, Jerez Aloza, his real name is Jose Aloza, and Robert D. Nestle. Robert D. Nestle was a collaborator with a lot of Jess Franco films. Cinematography is by Francesco Izzarelli. It's an Eastman color and widescreen. Music is by Angelo Francesco Lavagnito, and it's probably his best score. There's a song in it, Johnny West, sung by Caterina Ranieri. Runs 105 minutes. The Italian title is Johnny West Il Mancino. The French title is Les Frères Dynamite. Also Johnny West Les Gauchers. Spanish title is Johnny West. English titles are Left-Handed Johnny West and just Johnny West. The main characters and actors are Johnny Cherokee West, played by Dick Palmer. Fred Jefferson / Chris Jackson, twin brothers, played by Mike Anthony. Don Trent is played by Roger Delaporte. Brad McCoy is played by Andre Bollet. Ann Rose, or Juanita, is played by Mara Cruz. Dusty is played by Roberto Camardiel. And in the supporting cast, some names you'll probably recognize is Jeff, played by Spanny Convery, that's Spartaco Conversi. The Sheriff, Mac McIntyre, is played by Barta Barry, that's Burnaby Barty. And then we have Ivan, played by Alfonso Rojas. And the two Jefferson henchmen are played by Franco Daddy and Bruno Akmar. Okay? Story, and stay with me. Johnny West, played by Dick Palmer, a half-breed gunfighter, arrives in a village where the domineering twin Jefferson brothers, Fred and Chris, played by Mike Anthony, are the head of a gang of men willing to do anything. Johnny makes off with the loot from a stagecoach robbery Jefferson's men pulled. So they go gunning for Johnny and decide the best way to get even is to shatter the left hand that makes him such a quick draw and then kill his girlfriend Juanita, played by Mara Cruz, and her father, and frame West for the crime. While West is locked in jail, he's joined by two ex-boxers turned peddlers, Don Trent, played by Roger Delaporte, and Brad McCoy, played by Andre Bollet, and a local character called Dusty, played by Roberto Camardial. The Jefferson brothers then rob the bank, spring the prisoners, and try and frame them for the crime. They've also captured a man who has found a rich gold mine, blackmailing him and forcing him to make a will, naming them as partners, which allows them to access the miner's bank account. In a typical spaghetti western twist at the final showdown, the bad guys bring Fred Jefferson's coffin to town and pry it open so his dead body can witness the demise they have planned for Johnny and his friends. The coffin actually has a false back that rotates and Chris Jefferson suddenly appears. With the help of Trent and McCoy, they eliminate the ferocious gang. Johnny returns the stolen money to the bank he's been hiding for safekeeping and gives it to its rightful owner. Then, in true fashion, Johnny West rides off into the sunset. As far as availability, I could only find that this was released on DVD in the United States on a very minor label. Okay, as far as talking points go, Gianfranco Parolini is Frank Kramer, who directed the Sabata trilogy. Hard to believe after seeing this meandering film. One mildly interesting point is that the villainous figure here is actually twin brothers, with the more vicious of the two identified solely by his dark attire and pencil mustache. Also, when one of them is killed off and his coffin is brought to town square to witness Johnny West's own demise, the other is ingeniously hidden behind a revolving panel inside the coffin. West has a dog named Gypsy who's here, then disappears, and then reappears as necessary in the plot. The town set used is Golden City, the site of Fistful of Dollars in Hoyo de Manzanares, Spain. Excuse me. Roger Delaporte and Andre Bollet were actually French wrestlers who wrestled together as partners of a tag team, added to the cast by the French producers because of their name recognition by French theater viewers. This is one of those films where it's half drama and half comedy. The fisticuffs between Delaporte and Bollet gets tiresome really quick, and they happen too many times during the film. Palmer, on the other hand, is very athletic, but more wooden than Anthony Stephan, and totally deadpan the entire film. The crushing of Palmer's gun hand, and then his quickly learned proficiency and dexterity with a gun in his other hand is reminiscent of the Man with No Name's recovery after having his gun hand damaged by the Rojos in Fistful of Dollars. There are too many subplots added with the revengeful son trying to get revenge against the Jeffersons for kidnapping of his father, the mine owner, his romance with a saloon girl, an Indian girl who has the hots for Johnny, and Dusty's antics added to the main plot is too distracting. A bit of trivia here. Mimo Palmara, who is Dick Palmer, was Sergio Leone's first choice to play Ramon Rojo in Fistful of Dollars, but instead chose to play the bandit Santerno in Bullets Don't Argue, which was being filmed at the same time with Rod Cameron and Horace Frank. You'll also notice in the soundtrack vocals sung by actress-singer Katrina Ranieri. She sings a line, "Johnny, Johnny West, Chair Rock is your name." That puzzled me for years. What Chair Rock? Where'd that come from? I'm sure she was not familiar with and had no idea how to pronounce Cherokee and pronounced it phonetically as Chair Rock because the rest of the song she sings in perfect English. Okay, as far as actor profiles go, Johnny Cherokee West is played by Dick Palmer. Dick Palmer was an alias for stuntman, stunt coordinator, and actor Domenico Mimo Palmara. He was born in Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy on July 25, 1928. He appeared in 19 spaghetti westerns. Mimo also founded SINC Cinematographica, a voice dubbing studio from 1967 to 2000. Mimo died in Rome on June 11, 2016, a month short of turning 88. We covered him previously in episode 97. Then we had Fred Jefferson and Chris Jackson, played by Mike Anthony. Mike Anthony was an alias for Adriano Micantoni. He was born in Rome on April 7, 1921. He was a writer, playwright, theater, film, radio, TV, and voice actor. Micantoni acted under several other aliases and pseudonyms, including Mike Antony, Mark Loud, M-A-R-C Loud, Tony Mackey, and Peter White. Now be careful with a Peter White alias because there are several other spaghetti western actors who used that same pseudonym. Meek and Tony appeared in 71 films and TV appearances between 1941 and 1991. He acted in 9 spaghetti westerns and usually played villain roles. Then we have Don Trent, played by Roger Delaporte. Interesting guy. Delaporte was born in La Petite Quevilly, Seine-Maritime, France on April 12, 1928. He was a professional wrestler. He had a great career which began at the dawn of the 1950s and was a large or huge star during the ORTF wrestling broadcasts, where he played a cheater character. He was also associated with Andre Bollé to form one of the best tag teams of the time. Delaporte bought the famous El Moulin, which had been abandoned, and made it a wrestling stronghold. He also managed the FFLI, French Federation of Independent Wrestlers, which had 85 wrestlers. He then headed the FFCP, French Professional Wrestling Federation, until 1985. Having retired from sports, he sometimes officiated matches. He closed the doors of the El Moulin in 1988 for lack of wrestlers, but did not abandon wrestling, usually commenting on the evolution of American wrestling. Delaporte died in France on October 24, 2009, at the age of 81. He appeared in 3 films and a TV series. This was his only spaghetti western. Then we have Brad McCoy, who is Andre Bollé. Andre Bollé was a professional wrestler and, as mentioned, the tag team partner for Roger Delaporte. Bollé was born in Paris on April 12, 1924. He also appeared in 11 films from 1959 to 1983, including The Three Fantastic Supermen in 1969 and Borsellino in 1970. He died in Paris on July 6, 2014, at the age of 90. This was his only spaghetti western. Then we have Anne Rose, or Juanita, played by Mara Cruz. Mara Cruz Isabel Palomino Gonzalez was born in Madrid, Spain on March 24, 1941. She was a film actress who appeared in 35 films from 1957 to 1976. Among those films are appearances in 5 spaghetti westerns, including Blanche in 1966's The Tall Women. Last but not least, we have Dusty, played by Roberto Camardiel. Roberto Camardiel Escudero was born on November 29, 1917 in Alagon, Zaragoza, Aragon, Spain, and died there on June 15, 1986 at the age of 69 from a bone disease. He was the brother of actress Mercedes Camardiel. Roberto was a film and TV actor who appeared in over 140 films and TV series. He took part in 26 spaghetti westerns, usually as drunken sidekicks, Mexican generals, and for comic relief. We covered him before in episodes 35 and 97. So that wraps it up for Johnny West. Now we'll move along to who are those guys in the Delaquas. Okay, before we get going, bear with Jay as he posts pictures, because this is the first time we've done a family of actors, and there's 5 of these people. So the Delacqua family of actors and stuntmen consisted of 4 brothers: Arnaldo, born in 1938, Alberto, born in 1944, Roberto, born in 1946, Ottaviano, born in 1955, and a sister, Fernanda, born in 1941, who appeared in only one spaghetti western, Up the McGregors, also known as 7 Women for the McGregors, in 1966 under the alias Fern Water. Get it? The family came from Milan, and their great-grandparents, Arnaldo and Matilda Travagli, started a circus. Down through the years, the Delacquas worked in circuses as performers and owned and operated their own circuses till this very day through the 6 generations. The brothers and sister are children of Fausto dell'Acqua and Giovanna Huesca, who had their own circus, Circo Impero, which went bankrupt during World War II. After the war, they created Circo de Mar, and it was there that the brothers debuted as acrobats, jugglers, trapeze artists, cyclists, and trampoline artists. Alberto, the most famous of the brothers, started doing stunts in 1964, followed by the others in 1966. Although both sister Fernanda and Roberto had appeared in the second McGregor Western in 1965. If you see listed in the credits or spot one in the film, it's most likely there are another one or two in the same film. They can be spotted usually as brawlers in saloon and street fights. Often you'll see one brother brawling with another as they refer back to stunts they performed together in their circus days. Okay, let's get started. The oldest brother is Arnaldo, who was born on May 14, 1938 in Campobasso, Molise, Italy. He passed away last July 23rd, 2024 in Rome at the age of 86. He appeared in 41 spaghetti westerns, appearing in both acting roles and performing stunts, sometimes billed as Aldo dell'Acqua. He appeared in around 130 films altogether. The next oldest brother was Alberto. He was born on May 14, 1946 in Campobasso and is the most famous of the group. He appeared in 32 spaghetti westerns as stuntman and leading actor and supporting actor. He was billed as Cole Kitosh, Robert Widmark, and Albert Waterman. He's appeared in around 120 films. Alberto was introduced to stunt work in 1964 by the great Freddie Unger in E Malamando. That's best remembered for its score composed by Ennio Morricone. Franco Giraldi, who was an assistant director on the film, searched for Alberto the following year for a role in his first Western, Seven Guns from the McGregors. During shooting, Alberto broke 5 ribs and 2 skull fractures and a fracture of 2 vertebrae of the cervical spine, all caused by the saddle girth, which broke at full gallop and he fell off from his horse. Production in the film was halted for months until he received and was able to he recovered and was able to resume working. The third brother is Roberto, born in Rome on April 16, 1946. Let me go back. Alberto was born in 44. It's confusing because he's often portrayed as a twin of Roberto, but Alberto was born in 44. Roberto was born in 46. He passed away on September 16, 2019 in Rome. He appeared in 41 spaghetti westerns and was sometimes billed as Aldo dell'Acqua. Roberto appeared in just over 100 films. Roberto makes the unforgettable fall from the water tower into the camera in Keoma. For me, this is one of the greatest stunts of the genre. Hopefully, it was done in one take. The last of the 4 is probably the best known to the family today because he's still active as a stunt coordinator and appears regularly in conventions and film shows. He's Ottaviano dell'Acqua, and he was born in Rome on March 13, 1955. He appeared in 19 spaghetti westerns, but is best known for his role as Worm-Eyed Zombie in Lucio Fulci's 1979's Zombie. Ottaviano has appeared in over 370 films. Ottaviano played Clay McCord as a boy in the flashback scenes in A Minute to Pray, A Second to Die. The dell'Acquas are one of the most famous of the stunt acting families of the genre, and without their participation, the films would not have been as exciting or full of such amazing stunts and falls. I'll post each of their filmographies after we end this episode, and it's posted on Facebook and YouTube. Okay? Now let's move along to whatever became of, and it's Joseph Egger and Antonio Prieto. Since there's limited information posted on these two guys, I thought I would combine them into one episode. First, we'll talk about Joseph Egger. Joseph Egger was born in Donauwitz, Styria, Austria-Hungary, on February 22nd, 1889. He began his stage career at the age of 18, appearing at the Leoben Theater. He became a well-known music hall comedian, famous for doing tricks with his beard. He'd go on to appear in several other theaters, including the Raymond Theater in Vienna and the Deutsches Theater in Munich, Germany. He entered films in 1935 and made over 75 until 1965. Egger specialized in character roles playing eccentric old men. During the 1950s, he specialized in comic performances in what were called German Heimat films, Heimatfilms. I'm not familiar with them, which were popular during the decade. As we all know, he's best remembered for his role as Piro Piro, the coffin maker in 1964's Fistful of Dollars. And he was brought back by Sergio Leone in for a few dollars more as the prophet in the famous comic scene with Clit in the train. He's often mentioned as playing Dirty Joe, the pool room owner, in My Name is Nobody, but that film was made in 1971, 5 years after Egger's death. Egger was married to a woman named Erna, who was born in 1895 and she died in 1982, and they had 3 sons. He worked up until his passing on August 29, 1966, in Gablitz, Lower Austria, at the age of 77. Egger appeared in 6 spaghetti westerns. He was in The Terrible Sheriff in 1962 as Joe Egger. Of course, he was in A Fistful of Dollars as Piro Piro in 64 as Joe Egger. Massacre at Marble City in 64, he played Fishberry. Black Eagle at Santa Fe in 65, he played Buddy. For a few dollars more in 65, he played the Prophet. And in The Man from Nowhere, aka Arizona Colt, in 1966 as the old man at the stage station. Okay, then we have Antonio Prieto. Antonio Prieto Puerto was born on February 2nd, 1905 in Aspe, Alicante, Spain. He was an award-winning stage actor who also appeared in many Spanish and European films in character roles. He is best remembered as Don Miguel Benito Rojo in Sergio Leone's classic spaghetti western A Fistful of Dollars. His professional acting career beginnings are obscure, but there are records indicating that by 1926 he was established enough to play a major role in Jose Zorrilla's Don Juan Tenorio at the Principal Theater in Alicante, receiving great reviews for his performance. In 1928, he became a contract player for the Teresa Barachina Theater Ensemble, starring successfully in all dramas and comedies in the group's repertoire, including The Lady of Camelias by Alexander Dumas Jr. and Marianella by Benito Perez Galdós. Soon Prieto became co-owner of the company with Barachina, and together they played in countless stage productions through the 1930s and early 1940s. By 1943, the partnership had been dissolved, and he started an even more successful career in other theater companies with national standing. He appeared in films beginning in 1927, but left for theater work. In 1954, he was lulled back by the film industry and proved that he was as effective in movies as in theater. He never stopped acting on stage, but combined it with spaced out appearances on the big screen in some 38 films between 1927 and 1966. Antonio Prieto died quietly of heart failure in Madrid, Spain at age 60 on April 2nd, 1965. He looked much older than that to me. He appeared in one other spaghetti western, and that was Three Swords of Zorro in 1963 as Don Manuel Paredes. Okay, now we'll move on to the film of the week, and it's The Grand Duel. Okay, The Grand Duel, we've touched on this before when we talked about Lee Van Cleef and his own episodes, but I thought we'd go into a little bit more detail. on this one since it's a fan favorite. Okay, this is a 1972 Italian-French West German film co-production directed by Giancarlo Santi. The screenplay is by Ernesto Gastaldi and Albert Kantoff. Cinematography is by Mario Volpiani. It's an Eastman color and cinemascope. Music is by Luis Bacalov. Running time is 100 minutes. The Italian title is Il Grande Duello. The French title is Le Grand Duel. The German title is Drei Vaterunser Vorwien Holunken. The UK or British title is Hell's Fighters. I don't know if that's a film release title or a video title. English titles are The Great Duel, The Big Showdown, Showdown at High Noon, The Loner, Storm Rider, which I know is a video title, and The Grand Duel. The main cast members are Sheriff Clayton, is played by Lee Van Cleef. David Saxton, or Saxon, and the Patriarch are played by Horst Frank. Philip Vernier, sometimes he's called Newland, is by Peter O'Brien. Marshal Eli Saxon, or Joe Buck, is played by Mark Mazza. Adam Saxon, or Jeff, is played by Klaus Grunbeck. Elizabeth is played by Dominique Darrell. A couple other names you'll recognize in the cast is Big Horse, or Anthony, or Peacock, is played by Jess Hahn, who we remember with Lee in Badman's River. Hulk, or Skinny, is played by Anthony Vernon. We remember him, his real name is Anthony Antonio Casale. We remember him from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as the dying soldier in the Chariot of the Spirits. Okay, also in here is a Saxon henchman played by Ray O'Connor. That's Renato Capitani. And a couple of the bounty hunters seen in the opening scenes are Franco Fantasia, Angelo Susani, and Sergio Sagnati. Now, the story is pretty long, so try and bear with me because there's a lot of things covered here. We take a deep breath and a cough before we start. Clayton, played by Lee Van Cleef, is a former sheriff of Jefferson, stops a bounty killer siege on the young Philip Vernier, played by Peter O'Brien, who has managed to escape and take refuge in the mountains after being wrongly accused by the Saxon brothers, David, played by Horst Frank, Eli, played by Mark Mazza, and Adam, played by Klaus Grunberg, of killing their father called the Patriarch, also played by Horst Frank. Vermeer was tried and convicted but escapes. Sheriff Clayton was stripped of his position after accusing the judge as being corrupt. Philippe believes that Clayton is now a bounty hunter and tries to stay away from him, but is actually taken under his protection when he arrests him. Vermeer is stolen by the bounty hunters, taken to a waterfall, and Clayton finds them beating and questioning Vermeer, asking where the silver of his father was, and offering to let him go if he tells. Clayton saves him again, and he rides off to Saxon City and confronts the Saxon brothers. Clayton arrives and demands that the Saxon reopens Vermeer's case. Vermeer sends word to his friends and people loyal to his father to gather at the silver mine. A duel between Hoke and Vermeer is supervised by Clayton after he reveals that it was Hoke who killed Vermeer's father. Following orders from Ebenezer Saxon, an ambusher is there helping Hoke, but Vermeer shoots him without Clayton interfering. The dying Hoke says he killed Vermeer because the latter refused to share the silver. Adam massacres Vermeer's followers with hidden explosives and a machine gun. He also kills his own men following his brother David's instructions to not leave any witnesses. David Saxon offers $25,000 if Clayton and Vermeer leave town. Clayton relays that the offer that the charge will be dropped. Vermeer replies that the Saxons made the offer because dead people don't need a leader, and reveals the wagon in which he carries the bodies of those killed by Adam. Adam then shoots and wounds Vermeer from an upstairs window. In the morning, the captured Vermeer is to be hanged. Clayton says he knows who is the real killer. Clayton wants David wants the hanging to continue, but Eli says that he must know. Clayton confesses that he himself did it, as explaining that Ebenezer Saxon killed Vermeer's father, and that David Saxon bought the judge who sentenced Vermeer and stripped Clayton of his title of sheriff after he testified at the trial to declare him innocent, so justice could only be done the Saxon way. The Saxons demand a confrontation at the cattle pens. When Clayton approaches, David says that the three must draw first to overcome Clayton's faster and expert gunplay. Vermeer from a distance shoots off Clayton's hat so that he draws first. It works and Clayton reacts by killing the three men and only getting a small wound. Vermeer picks up his hat, gun, and star and says that Clayton can now go back to being a sheriff. Vermeer leaves for Mexico not caring about the silver, while Clayton goes his own way. Okay, director Giancarlo Santi was tabbed by Sergio Leone to direct Ducky Sucker, but was rejected by the producers and by both Steiger and Coburn. This film shows his creativity, but I felt the storyline was weak and meandering. Some have pointed out it must have been a small budget film, as Lee isn't even given a holster for his final duel with the three Saxon brothers. He's forced to stick the pistol in his pants and walk through a series of corrals, pushing open all the gates on his way to the point of no return while the music plays. Others point that Horst Frank plays both the patriarch and the older brother David, and you can see that it's Frank playing both parts. Only the silhouette of the killer is seen at the flashback standing at a railroad station with steam from the train's engine swirling around him. But anyone familiar with Lee Van Cleef recognizes it's him in a second. Where was Romano Pupo, who was Lee's stunt double in several other westerns, when you needed him? The opening scene opens in a seldom seen and used landscape with huge rock spires and one of the best and unique scores by Louis Bacalov playing over the opening credits. The opening scene of Lee pointing out all the bounty hunters to Vermeer and thwarts their attempts to capture or kill their prey is very creative. Once the opening scene is finished, for me, the film begins to turn boring and slides downhill. The three Saxon brothers are a real collection of mentally challenged elitists. Okay, for actor profiles, we have Sheriff Clayton, played by Lee Van Cleef. Clarence Van Cleef Jr. was born in Somerville, New Jersey on January 19th, 1925, so we are celebrating his 100th birthday this year. He was a character in films and TV in the 1950s and early 60s. Sergio Leone used Lee as a last-minute replacement as Colonel Mortimer in For a Few Dollars More in 1965, and Lee's great performance in the film made him an immediate star in Italy and Spain. After Clint went back to the States, Lee stayed and became the #1 American star in Euro Western for the next decade. Lee returned to the United States in the late 1970s and appeared in action films until his death on December 16, 1989, in Oxnard, California, a month short of turning 64. Lee appeared in 16 spaghetti westerns. We covered Lee in his own episode number 25. David Saxon and the Patriarch were played by Horst Frank. We also covered Horst Frank previously and gave him his own episode number 50. Briefly, he was born Horst Bernhard Wilhelm Frank on May 28, 1929 in Lübeck, Schleswig, Holstein, Germany, and died on May 25, 1999 in Heidelberg, Baden-Württemberg, Germany, 3 days short of turning 70. He appeared in 10 spaghetti westerns. Then we have Philip Vermeer or Newland, played by Peter O'Brien. Peter O'Brien was born Alberto Dentis. There's very little written or can be found on the internet about him. Checking posts on his Facebook page, he states he was born in Rome, and from another post he mentions his birth in 1949. His acting career lasted 4 years and only 3 films. He left the film industry and became a journalist for L'Espresso in Rome. Today he's retired and still lives in Rome. Next we have Marshall Eli Saxon or Joe Buck. He was played by Mark Mazza. His real name is Marco Mazzacurati. He was born in Paris, France on April 18th, 1938. He was a film actor who Americanized his name to Mark Mazza. Check out the video, Mark Mazza, Who Was the Rider on the Rain, on YouTube. It's a video essay about the elusive tough guy by our friend and film expert Mike Malloy. It's amazing how this small part player ended up in films like Moonraker. Malloy does a fine job illuminating this familiar face who never truly got into the spotlight. Mazza inspired the Doors song as a villain in Charles Bronson's Rider on the Rain. We even find out Mazza's outside acting success. This was a great tribute to the actor. Mark is married and the father of Gay Mazzacurati, who founded the cosmetics brand Hi Poa from 1974 to 2003. He appeared in one other spaghetti western, My Name is Nobody, in 1972 with Terence Hill, and is remembered for the famous slapping scene. He also appears as himself in the 2014 documentary Django, Sartana, Trinity, and the Others. Then we have Adam Saxon, or Jeff, played by Klaus Grunbeck. Klaus Grunbeck is a German film and TV actor born in Weismar, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, Germany on November 20th, 1941. He's appeared in 50 films and television series beginning in 1967. This was his only spaghetti western. By the way, the pockmarks on his face were just makeup. Apparently they wanted to make him look as creepy as he acted. Last but not least, we have Elizabeth, played by Dominique Darrell. I didn't mention Darrell's character Elizabeth during the storyline, as she's a character in the shadows. She arrives in the stagecoach with Clayton and Vermeer with the intention of marrying Adam Saxon. As the film progresses, we see her completely change her opinion of Adam and is repulsed by him. She falls for Vermeer and rides off with him at the end of the film. Dominique Darrell was born in Cannes, France on April 5th, 1950, and was a model and film actress. She moved to Rome in 1968, and her film career consisted of 9 films and TV appearances from 1971 to 1979. Her first film was in Luciano Visconti's 1971 Death in Venice, where she plays a British tourist. She then became a minor starlet in German and Italian genre cinema and is probably best known for the role of Maria Romana de Gasperi in Roberto Rossellini's Year One. She died at 28 on June 4th, 1978, in a car accident at Cannes. This was her only spaghetti western. Okay, let's move on to the CD LP of the week. Okay, the composer for Johnny West is Angelo Francesco Lavagnino, and we covered him extensively in episode number 115, so I'm going to talk about the singer of the song, Caterina Ranieri. She was born Caterina, Caterina Ranieri, on August 31st, 1925, in Follonica, Roseto, Italy. She was an actress, songwriter, and singer. She was married to an aviation officer named Euspio, Euespio Sternini, from 1944 to 1964, and the mother of Ernesto Sternini. She then was married to composer, conductor, songwriter, actor Riz Ortolani. Real name is Rizziero Ortolani. He was born in 1926 and died in 2014. And they were married from 1964 to 2014, his death. She was the mother of production manager Rizia Ortolani, born in 1966. Caterina died in Rome on September 2nd, 2018, at the age of 93. She also sang the main song from How Much You Miss Me in the 1967 spaghetti western Beyond the Law. starring Lee Van Cleef and Antonio Sabato. This film score for Johnny West was only released on a composition CD in 2006 from Spain on Saimel, Saimel, number 3997110. There's 28 tracks on the CD, 11 of them are for Johnny West, which does include the vocal. The listening time for just Johnny West is 24 minutes and 4 seconds. Then we move on to the CD and LP for Grand Duel. The composer on this is Luis Enriquez Bacalov. He was born in San Martin, Buenos Aires, Argentina on August 30th, 1933. He was a songwriter, composer, musician, piano, and formed the Luis Bacalov Orchestra. He ventured into music for the cinema and composed some now classic scores for many spaghetti western films, including Django, A Bullet for the General, The Price of Power, The Man Called Noon. In the early 1970s, he also collaborated with Italian progressive rock bands. Bacalov was nominated twice for the Academy Award for Best Original Score. In 1967 for Pasolini's The Gospel According to St. Matthew, and won the award for Il Postino in 1996. It was always a sore point for Ennio Morricone fans and collectors that Bacalov won an Oscar before Ennio did. Luis Enriquez Bacalov died in Rome on November 15, 2017, at the age of 84. The first CD for the score was released in 1995 in Italy on Point Records. It's number PRCD 120, and it contains 14 tracks. Listening time is 57 minutes and 23 seconds. It's valued anywhere from $15 to $36. There's the CD. Okay. Then in 2003, it was released in Japan on CD by Rambling Records, number RBCP 2306, 14 tracks. Listing time is 33 minutes and 3 seconds. Value is $1 to $63, depending on condition. Excuse me. In 2022, an LP came out in the USA on Scare Flare Records, SFR 006, and was limited to 500 copies. It has 14 tracks and a listening time of 32 minutes. It has a value of $10 to $66. So that wraps it up for the soundtracks for Left-Handed Johnny West and The Grand Duel. Okay, let's move on to Autograph of the Week. Okay, we have David Huddleston. Who? David Huddleston in Seeing Spaghetti Westerns? Yeah. He was born in 1930, died in 2016. Remember, he was in Billy Two Hats in 1973, filmed in Israel. He was also in one of the Lucky Luke TV shows, paid by Terence Hill, on TV in 1992. If you don't like Terence Hill, or you don't like Lucky Luke, or you don't like this series, I beg to differ to you and at least look at this episode. It's called Ghost Train. Stars David Huddleston and the great Jack Elam. It's probably the best episode of the series, and it's really, really good. So bear with me and find it on YouTube and check it out. Okay, thanks much. Now we'll move on to Tom's Poster Attic. Okay, first poster we have is the German poster for Left-Handed Johnny West. Great shot of Mimo Palmara. Okay, and then we move on to the Belgium poster for the Grand Duel. And again, great artwork, nice headshot of Lee. And last but not least, much like Johnny West. We have the German poster for the Grand Duel. And again, a great headshot of Lee Van Cleef. Okay, now let's wrap things up with the weekly news. Okay, before we get going, I want to thank Sarah Vista for the wonderful Duck You Sucker cup that she sent me from Spain. She was over there doing a movie, which I can't relate at this time what it was, but it is a spaghetti western. It's been talked about on the internet, but I haven't been given permission to talk or discuss about it. But I want to thank her for that and some other material that she sent me. And we'll move along now to the weekly news. First of all, we have a Spanish CD for Buffalo Kids, which came out in 2024. The composer is Fernando Velázquez. It was released on Quartet Records, number QR565, and contains 28 tracks with a listening time of 65 minutes and 21 seconds. Then we have a new German Blu-ray DVD release of Modulo. No, not that Modulo. That's the German name for Bad Man's River, 1971. Directed by Eugenio Martin and starring Lee Van Cleef, Gina Lollobrigida, Johnny Garco, and Jess Hahn. It was released on the Hunsound Lighthouse label. It's a limited media book release, offers Dolby Digital German English, and runs 92 minutes. This was released on February 28th. Then we have a German re-release of the DVD Mein Freund Winnetou, which is My Friend Winnetou, 1980, directed by Marcel Camus and starring Pierre Brice, Siegfried Roch, Ralph Walter, and Carlos East. This was released on the Pidax film label on March 2nd. It contains 3 discs and all 18 episodes of the Euro television series. It's in widescreen and Dolby Digital German with a total running time of 6 hours. And we move into our Boot Hill section. First of all, we have French entertainer and historian Herbert Leonard. He died from lung cancer on March 2nd. He was 80. He was born Hubert. I don't know how to pronounce this last name. It's Loenhard. Is that Loenhard? Anyways, in Strasbourg, Bas-Rhin, France, on February 25th, 1945. He was a French entertainer and historian who was principally known as a singer. He was also a historian of Russian airplanes from World War II. His first success, Quelques Chostient Mon Square, Something Got a Hold of My Heart, opened the doors of a hit parade for him in 1968. His 1982 album, Ça donne envie de mer, and the song Amoureux Fou was done in a duo with Julie Pietri, perpetuating his image as a crooner. Leonard appeared in one Euro Western, the 1969 TV film The Man Who Came from Char, as the Baron. Coincidentally, composer and singer Jean Saris of Les Charlottes, who also appeared in the film, died on February 19th. We brought that up in a previous episode. That's 2 of them in a month. Italian director and actress Eleonora Gheorghi died in Rome on March 3rd. She was 71. She was born in Rome on October 21st, 1953. She had a long and varied career in Italian cinema and television, appearing in dozens of films in the 70s and 80s, many of which were comedies and erotic comedies, as well as taking on dramatic roles. Her best-known films include Mia Moglie e Unstrega in 1980, Grand Hotel Excelsior in 82, and Borotalco in 82, for which she won the David D. Donatello Award and remembered it as the most beautiful role of my career. Gheorghi was married from 79 to 83 to film producer and publisher Angelo Rizzoli, with whom she had a son, Andrea, born in 1980. In 1991, she had another son, Paolo, born with actor Massimo Ciavaro, to whom she was married from 93 to 96. She had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2003 and had battled the disease for over 20 years. She appeared in only one spaghetti western, The Three Musketeers of the West, in 1973, as the lover in the opening scene. Then we have Evelyn Lazar. She died in Berlin, Germany on March 3rd at the age of 91. She was born in Germany on March 10th, 1933. She completed journalistic training after graduating from school. Lazar was the first woman to host the nightly news on the Berliner Abendschau, now RBB 24 Abendschau, for about 2 decades, from 1971 to 1991. She was also the first woman to present a news magazine on cultural topics. In addition, Lazar was also active as a screenwriter for films and television series, which developed concepts for television shows, and was occasionally active as an actress in front of the camera and as a dubbing actress. Lazar appeared as Cora Monroe on the 1956 Euro-Western East German TV film, The Last of the Mohicans, in 1956. Last but not least, we have Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman. His wife and her dog were found dead in their New Mexico home in Santa Fe, New Mexico on February 27th. He was 95. This is what I found out yesterday as the current cause of death and the official cause of death. It is believed Gene died of heart disease, doesn't say heart attack, says heart disease, and his wife of hantavirus. Their dog most likely died of dehydration. Hackman was born in San Bernardino, California on January 30th, 1930. The gruff but beloved Hackman was among the finest actors of his generation, appearing as villains, heroes, and anti-heroes in dozens of dramas, comedies, and action films from the 1960s until his retirement in the early 2000s. He was a 5-time Oscar nominee who won for The French Connection in '72 and Unforgiven 2 decades later. Hackman starred in the spaghetti western The Hunting Party as Brand Ruger in 1972. Now, the latest is the death has been placed at the 18th of March. That's when his pacemaker stopped. And his wife, believe it or not, they post that she died a week, 7 days earlier than him. How you can live in a house together and he not discover that she had been dead lying on the floor, because remember, she was supposed to have been partly mummified, for a week is beyond me. He wasn't suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's, so I don't know how that can happen. Wouldn't you think after a couple of days, is where's my wife? What, she's not supposed to be anywhere. Why isn't she around? Anyways, that's the official cause. Also, a reminder, I just found out again this today. Tonight, tomorrow morning at 2 o'clock starts daylight savings time, so turn your clocks ahead. I thought it was 2 weeks from now, but it's tonight, tomorrow morning. Anyways, this has been a Roberto Genizzi production, and until we meet again, adios, amigos.